I'm GK Kate. I'm delivering about aerial photogrammetry. So, what about definition? Aerial photogrammetry is the branch of photogrammetry wherein the photographs are taken by a rear-mounted camera with the help of aircraft flying over the area with the purpose of obtaining accurate measurements. Okay, so this is basic terminology, basic definition. Now, what about their geometrical parts? That is, with the help of aerial camera, we are taking some number of photographs, and from these photographs, we see here. What about this diagram? This diagram, which is showing that this is object A1. This is picture plane, pictorial photographs. That object same will be A1 small, and this is camera plate negative. This is A1-A1. Okay, so this is K1 dash and K1. This is total camera axis, dotted line, camera axis. Now, this is picture plane, which is positive print. This is negative camera plate, which is negative print. Okay, from this picture plane and this camera plate were taken from this aerial camera. That's the number of photographs. Okay, now this is also that optical axis, that is focal length f. We are see here focal length. So what about their terminology? Let's see what about their camera axis. Camera axis is line passing through the center of camera lens perpendicular to the both camera plate, negative as well as positive. That is perpendicular lines. Then what about picture plane? This is PP, picture plane. This picture plane is plane perpendicular to the camera axis at the focal distance in the front of lens. Okay, it is representative positive contact print, or it is called as photographs, which is taken from the plate or film. Then what about principal point? This is K or K1 dash. This is principal point. This principal point is defined by the intersection of camera axis with either the picture plane positive or the camera plate negative. Then what about focal length? This F. This focal length is the perpendicular distance from the center of camera lens to either the picture plane or the camera plate. Okay, so it is very important point of view. Then it is what about image plane or focal plane? This will be happens in with the help of that's a measure diagram. Okay, let's see what about this let's see what about their components. This is exposure station. Okay, then there is a N, there is a ground nadir point. This is photo nadir point, small n. Then this is K, is that your principal point of photograph. Then this photograph having their axis plus y, minus x, plus x. Then this H is that horizontal line. Then this is the direction of flight. Then this is direction line of gravity. Okay, it is also called as plumb line. Okay, then this is north. With the help of this north, we can take an azimuth angle as a phi. Okay, then this is camera axis. Okay, this is plumb line, this is camera axis. K is that principal point on ground. This K is principal point on photograph. Okay, then N is that ground nadir point. This small n is that photo nadir point. T is called as tilt. Okay, so this is actually tilted photograph, which is the major classification of one of aerial photogrammetry. They have actually two types. This is the one is that vertical photograph and tilted photograph. Okay, then this is actual diagram is tilted photograph. Then this is actual GL. GL is that ground level. Okay, and from that MSL, we see here that MSL, from this MSL to up to that exposure station O. is calling as flying height, okay, which is measured in that camera axis. Okay, then let's see one by one their terminology. What do you mean by that vertical photograph? This vertical photograph is nothing but aerial photograph made with the camera axis coinciding with direction of gravity. Okay, then what about tilted photograph? This tilted photograph is an aerial photograph made with the camera axis or optical axis, okay, which is unintentionally tilted from vertical by a small amount, okay, majorly less than usually 3 degree. Then what about the exposure station O? Okay, this exposure station O is a point in space or the air occupied by the camera lens at the instant exposure. That means while we are taking the pictorial photograph from camera, this is exposure station O. Okay, and then what about flying height? This flying height is nothing but elevation of the exposure above MSL or any other selected datum. Then very important point of view, this is called as swing. Okay, this is swing of photograph. Okay, then what do you mean by swing or tilt? That's maybe swing is the angle measured in the plane of photograph from the positive y-axis clockwise, from the positive y-axis to clockwise in that horizontal line, okay, which is very important. Then what about tilt? This is called as tilt of photograph. So what do you mean by tilt? Tilt is that in the photograph tilt is in the photograph vertical angle defined by the intersection. Okay. This is the vertical angle defined by the intersection with that camera axis and direction of gravity. Okay, this tilt is also exposure station at the exposure station, typical optical axis with the plumb line. Okay, so this is the basic terminology in this one. Then what we about the applications of this particular aerial photogrammetry. This will be helps in different applications in that engineering field. For example, first application is that interpretation of geology and classification of soils. This is very point of view. Then second application is that aerial mapping for military purpose or military uses. Then third one is that construction of planimetric and topographic maps. This also a major application. Then next one is that preparation of various maps. For example, forest map, cadastral map, archaeological map, and different engineering survey projects. And finally, the major application is that to finding the air-based distance from the photographs. So this is a realistic application in our civil engineering field. To that airborne images can be, we find their airborne distances or air-based distances from the photographs. Okay, so this helps to that number of applications which will be applicable to that particular civil engineering stations or civil engineering sectors. Then what we consider that the number of applications and there are a number of differences in aerial photographs and aerial maps. Okay, so let's see what about the difference between air photographs and aerial photographs and that particular map. Okay, so what is difference between both, that is aerial photograph and map? So first difference is that 2D view, that is two-dimensional view of an area at an instant time in aerial photograph, whereas in map data collected at some point in the time. This is first difference. Then what about second difference between aerial photograph and map is that no uniform scale over the whole area in aerial photograph, whereas map having a uniform scale. Okay, Then third one is that in aerial photograph having perspective projections, whereas in map having orthogonal projections. Then in fourth point for difference is in aerial photograph having full details of landscape. That means as actual photographs you have to taken and you have to show that as actual landscape or any other image. Whereas in the map, exact details on requirement you have to added them. Okay. Then last one difference is that you have to showing details as seen in camera, that I previously explained, that you have to landscape or any other details you have to show in aerial photograph as actual, but in map you have to show some details by using some conventional symbols. For example, muddy land, water and some forest you have to shown by some symbols. Okay, so from on point of view, this is basic terminology of aerial photogrammetry and this such these things. Okay, this is introductory part of aerial photogrammetry. So thank you friends, we are stopped here.